chat feature is enabled today to solicit your feedback. Make sure you subscribe to the Premier League channel now at HLF CEO. Now, let's welcome Eric Worre.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's so great to see you. If you can see me and if you could hear me, put a number 1 in the chat. Let me just see if this is all working well. Great to see you. How are you? Hope you're fantastic. I've got some exciting news for you today, and I've got some great training for you today. What we do is we educate people about the Herbalife products and the Herbalife opportunity. That is our job, that is our function. If you think about prospect on one side, the company with the products on the other side, you stand in the middle of those two groups and you educate, you demonstrate, you provide word-of-mouth advertising, and we also provide community. I mean, there's something to be said about the community. How many of you joined Herbalife maybe for the products or maybe even for the opportunity, but you found incredible value in the community that you've become a part of? Put a 2 in the chat if you found value in the community that you're connected to here. Isn't that something? My mentor, Jim Rohn, talked a lot about community, and he also talked a lot about the personal development aspect. How many of you become better people as a result of your connection and your involvement with Herbalife? Put a 3 in the chat if you become a better person. If this business has caused you to strengthen and grow and become more powerful and more skillful and more resilient, more mentally strong. It did all those things for me, and it can do it for you. Now, we are in week 3. On week 1, now again, these dates are when they were originally went live, and I know in different markets all over the world, you're starting different times because of translation, because of regional kind of not sensitivities, but regional what's the right word? Regional differences, requirements, yes, whatever it is, thank you. But wherever you're starting, here's the funnel. Not the whole funnel, but here's the process that we've been following. In week 1, we talked about filling the funnel, having as many conversations as possible, and getting as many prospects into conversation as we possibly could. And we ended that week 1, or part 1, with a conversation challenge. A challenge for you to have as many conversations as you could possibly have during that week. And I would encourage you to continue those conversations. How many of you have some sort of positive result as a result of agreeing with and following that conversation challenge? Put a 1 in the chat if you got result from that. Lots of people with results, and you're going to continue to have results. This is part of what we do. Whether you're introverted or extroverted, we're in the conversation business. We're in the people business. And if you're looking to grow your network, you're going to need to have more conversations with more people. What did Mark Hughes say so long ago? Use, wear, and talk. Use the products, wear the brand, and talk to people. So talk to people is a fundamental. It's never going to go away. People are looking for answers, and you have the ability to provide those answers. Last week, or second week, we talked about how to introduce Herbalife to your prospects. How do you transition from a regular conversation to a business conversation? How do you tell your story? How do you invite those people to take a look with the goal of education and understanding? How do you use a third-party tool, event, or person in order to be able to do the education and get yourself out of the way. And today, we're going to talk about how to enroll new distributors. How many of you have somebody who's thinking about it but hasn't been able to make a decision? Put a 7 in the chat. If you have somebody who's thinking about it and they're thinking about it and they're thinking about it, guess what? They need a professional. They need somebody to show up like you to help them make a decision that they already want to make, but they just quite don't know how to make that decision. So we're not about persuading people to do something that they don't want to do. What we're about is giving people a professional process that gives them some comfort, gives them some security and confidence that they can go out there and be successful building an Herbalife business. So I'm going to give you that process today. And then for those who have recruited at least one new distributor since January 1st, you're going to get a 4th training next week on the 23rd or whenever it happens for you, a part 4. Your qualification deadline for that is April 18th. If you have qualified, put an 18 in the chat. If you have at least one recruit since January 1, and you're going to be part of that with me, I'm going to teach you how to have the crucial conversation with a brand new person that joins and give them the best possible chance for success in Herbalife. Launch their business properly. Congratulations to all of you who have qualified. For the rest of you who have not qualified, you've got until the 18th, which is a few more days. You've got a couple more days to get that person. Hopefully use all this information, including what I'm going to share with you today, to help that person make a decision, become part of the Herbalife family, and begin the journey with you. So congratulations on that. And then, as you know, this is all around Premier League. On May 21st, we're going to hold the first ever Premier League Advanced Leadership Development Training. This is what I'm probably most known for, is the development of leaders. And I think leaders drive everything. Leaders are the engine that drive everything. So this is moving forward, it's going to be only for Premier League members only, those who have qualified around the world for Premier League. But this next month of May, the very first one, they're going to let people who have gotten halfway there. You have 5 recruits. If you have 5 personally enrolled recruits, then you're going to be eligible, since January 1st, you're going to be eligible for that first ever Premier League Advanced Leadership Development Training. Your qualification deadline is May 17th. Put a 5 in the chat if you've already qualified for that. You have at least 5 personally enrolled distributors that you've recruited. Congratulations to all of you. Not quite as many as those who recruited 1, but you've got until May 17th to be able to take all this information and go do it. Okay, so congratulations to all of you for being on the way there. The rest of you who are already Premier League members, congratulations. You're in a rare group, a very special new group. Let me recap part 1. Part 1, all business is conversation. Just keep repeating that over and over and over again. If you're in conversation, you're in business. If you're not in conversation, you're not in business. All business is conversation. You need to be having more conversations, encouraging your other people to do the same thing. There's 4 things that we do in our business. We sell valuable products using word-of-mouth advertising. We recruit other people who are selling. We duplicate this process, and we lead the people, the teams that we build. The network is very valuable. The bigger the network, the more opportunity you have to reach more people. Our goal through this whole process is education and understanding. That's our goal, to educate people to the point that they understand what it is that we have, what you have in the Herbalife opportunity. If you educate them to the point that they understand it, then it's easy for them to make a decision. If we don't educate them, it's very difficult. They can prejudge very easily. We ended part 1 with a conversation challenge. Week 2, part 2, is we transition the conversation to a business conversation. Normal conversation, we transition to a business conversation. We talked about how to do that. We also talked about how to tell your story. And those asking specifics on as far as how you qualify with those 5, with those 1, you need to go to your market leaders, you need to go to your upline, go to the company, get all the clarification. That's not what this training is going to be about. We'll be answering those questions. So go get that from your upline, go get that from the company. They will get you the answers. There's documents out there around the world that will give you the answers to that. I'm here to help you with the information necessary to go get it done, okay? So we're not going to get stuck in the weeds with all of the detail as specific market by market. All right? You with me? Okay. All right. Part 2, transition to business conversation, tell your story. Your background, every one of you has a story, what you didn't like about the background, that you found a solution with Herbalife, and how you feel about the future. We talked about how to get support from your hot market. How many of you already have used this hot market approach and had good results? Put a 3 in the chat if you've had some good results from using this hot market approach. I promise you, if you do this, you have the courage to do this, look at all the 3s, you will get good results. You will get support one way or another. Okay, so look at all that. That's a lot of 3s in the chat. So that should be encouraging to those of you that haven't had the courage to do it, even if you have to repair some relationships. We talked about how to invite to a third party, event, tool, or person. And the second challenge we gave you was the exposure challenge, to set up appointments with a third party to expose that person to the information necessary for them to be able to make a decision. And today, we're going to talk about enrolling new distributors. Follow up, how to answer questions, how to overcome objections, and how to close. Follow up, questions, objections, and closing. How many of you struggle with follow up, answering questions, overcoming objections, and closing? Put a 7 in the chat if you struggle with that. I really struggled with it when I first got involved in network marketing. Follow-up, they say the fortune is in the follow-up. I was terrified with follow-up. I was terrified about what they were going to say. If somebody asked me a question, I didn't know the answer, I was terrified of being embarrassed. If somebody gave me an objection, oh my gosh, that was the worst. I'll talk to you about how I handled objections at the time and how eventually I became a professional at objections. And I'm going to give you the framework to become a professional at handling any objection by the end of the training today, okay? All right, so let's talk about follow-up. Follow-up is simply keeping the conversation going. You have the conversation going, it's going. You transition the conversation, you tell them your story, introduce to some sort of third party. You just need to not stop the conversation. You need to keep the conversation going. Not everybody's going to join you first time they see something. Many of you joined the first time you saw Herbalife. It made so much sense to you that you said, you know what? This makes sense. I'm in. Okay? And ever since then, you've been frustrated at everybody else because they need more than one exposure. So there's been this phrase, I don't know if it's followed around the whole world, but there's this phrase here, at least in the United States, and the phrase says something like this. If you go share your Herbalife opportunity, some will, some won't, so what? Next. Has anybody ever heard that? Has anybody ever heard that? Some will, some won't, so what? Next. That used to be my approach. I used to like, you know what? If they don't see it like I see it, if they're not white hot, if they're not ready to go, next. And I actually learned that was the wrong approach. That was the wrong approach. That actually damaged some relationships. If a person wasn't ready at that moment, I shouldn't judge them that they weren't going to be ready ever. I should just have some compassion for them that they weren't ready in that moment. And continue the conversation. Some of you, and myself included, some of you went out there and talked to somebody, and their first exposure, they were not ready to make a decision, and you go, oh, some will, some won't, next. And you stop talking to them. That is a huge mistake. If you're going to be building a network and building real relationships, what I would ask you to do is not have transactional relationships. What I mean by that is continue to be friends, continue to be a real human being, talking to people, helping them solve problems, helping them become more educated on entrepreneurship. Just continue the conversation and have some compassion that their timing might not be your timing. They might not have an open mind right this second. Okay? That doesn't mean, how many exposures did it take before you joined Herbalife? How many different times and different ways did you need to hear about it before you were ready to join? I see some ones, but put a real number in there. 6 years, I see some. 5, 13 years. And some of your best people are not going to be one exposure. Take a look at all these numbers. Yes, there's some ones. But for every one, there's tons of them that took some time. Be a real human being. Stay in conversation. You know what's crazy? The person who talked to you first probably wasn't the person that signed you up. Put a 10 in the chat if the person that talked to you first was not the one that signed you up. Take a look at all the 10s. You know why? Because the first person said some will, some won't, so what next? And they walked away. And you planted the seed, and somebody else got to harvest the fruit. Don't let that happen to you. Stay in conversation. Stay in conversation. Okay? If they join after one exposure, fantastic. But set their expectation. At least let them know. That's not normal. That's somebody who's super hungry. Instead, know this. Here's some principles, some follow-up principles that are really, really important. Number 1, be patient with your prospects, but always have urgency. This sounds contradictory. Have urgency. They're saying in the chat that the chat is only set up for panelists to see. Is that true? You need to select everyone on your side in the little 2 thing. Select everyone and then make some sort of comment, and that should open everything up. See if that helps you. Okay. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. You know, the chat can be there, but it doesn't have to be an important thing. Just listen. Just pay attention. Take the notes. Another good thing I would suggest that you do, take screenshots of all these different slides. Take screenshots. All right, it looks like people can see now. All right, fantastic. Be patient with urgency. Be patient, understanding you're going to stay in conversation with these people sometimes for years. You're going to find a creative way to stay in touch sometimes for years. But always have urgency. Now's a good time. Now's the perfect time. You know, let me tell you what's happening now. You couldn't pick a better time than now. Have urgency with the patience. Got to balance these 2 things. Don't be too overdone with urgency that you lose your patience. Second is multiple exposures are going to be necessary almost always with the goal of education and understanding. If you're face-to-face, if you're person-to-person, if you're individual to individual, on average, it's going to take 4 to 6 exposures for a person to make a decision, a business decision, not a product decision, but a business decision. 4 to 6 exposures on average. They're going to watch a video, then they're going to try the product, then they're going to join a Zoom, then they're going to talk to your upline, and then they're going to take a look at the compensation plan, and then they're going to, who knows what, meet you for coffee, and then they're ready to join. And there's no real order to this. You're going to use all the different third-party tools to be able to do it. But 4 to 6 if it's face-to-face. If you're using social media, it's much more. How many of you have seen an ad on social media and you intend to buy that product? You see it, you intend to buy it, but you still have to see it 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 times before you finally buy it. Put a 1 in the chat if that's ever been you. You see it, you're going to buy it. You're intending to buy it. You still need to see it 15 to 30 times before you, on social before you're ready to buy. That's just the way people are. So if you're using social media, the exposure number is much, much higher. If you're more person to person, 4 to 6 exposures. Just to understand that. Again, we're using anything that isn't you. We're using third party. We're using anything that builds trust, confidence, and belief as a source of an exposure. What you ultimately want to do is you want to create 3 thoughts for your prospect as they're looking at this. The first time they look at it, they're almost completely blind. They're almost completely uneducated. The first time they take a look, they see Herbalife, they're blinded by prejudgment. They're blinded by what they heard from a friend. They're blinded by misunderstanding. And every exposure that you give them helps them create in their mind 3 basic thoughts that you're trying to help them understand. This looks simple, not implying that the business is simple, but this process looks like something I could do. I could do what you're doing with me. I could have conversation. I could tell my story. I could introduce somebody to a third-party tool. I could follow up. I could do this. This looks relatively simple. I think it'll work. I think this makes sense to me. And third, I think I could do it. Even with my insecurities, even with my introverted nature, even with my shyness, even with my lack of sales skills. This looks simple. I think it'll work. I think I could do it. That's what you want the prospect to feel like when they're going through these exposures. They see exposure number 1 and like, there's something here, but I just don't get it. Then they try the product. They're going, oh, this makes sense. And then they take a look at the compensation plan. And it's like, this looks powerful, but I still kind of don't get it. And then they talk to somebody else, and slowly the fog lifts. Slowly the understanding starts to sink in, and they go, now I understand. Now we accomplish our goal. That they understand what you have, so they can finally make a decision. Okay? So I want you to take a screenshot of this or write it down. The only reason for an exposure is to schedule the next exposure. The only purpose for a meeting is to schedule the next meeting. The only reason to introduce somebody to a third party is to introduce them to the next one. Understand, it took me a while to understand this principle. I would finish the exposure and I'd hang up the phone or I'd walk away and I would forget. I'm like, oh my God, how did I not schedule the next exposure? I left them alone. You have to schedule the next exposure before you leave the first exposure. It's the most important thing. If you end one exposure without scheduling the next one, you messed up. You got to go back and say, hold on, we got to restart. I need to help you understand the next piece. The only reason, beat that into your head, put this up on your wall, take a picture and frame it and put it in front of your computer. The only reason for an exposure is to schedule the next exposure, no matter what it is. What is an exposure? Anything that's not you. People asking you, what is an exposure? Show them the next slide. Exposures rarely follow an exact path. An exposure could be any of these things, any event, any tool, any person. The only reason to introduce them to any of these things is to schedule the next one. And then once you schedule the next one, guess what? Your only reason to do is schedule the next one, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next, until they join. And let me give you a pro tip. Once they join, it doesn't stop. Once they join, it doesn't stop. They sign up, then you still have to schedule the next exposure. They join your business, and then still you need to schedule them to join the extravaganza. If the chat's bothering you, just minimize it. You can minimize the chat. It's real easy. Just click the little button, minimize the chat. You don't have to look at it. It's no problem. Very easy. So exposure to exposure even after they join. Do you understand? If you understand what I'm saying here, the only reason for an exposure is to schedule the next exposure. And the exposure to exposure does not stop even after somebody joins. If you understand what I'm saying there, put a 2 in the chat if you understand. Do you understand? We go from exposure to exposure to exposure. They join your business, and then it's still exposure to exposure to exposure. They rank advance, and then it's still exposure to exposure to exposure. They qualify for Premier League, and then it's still exposure to exposure to exposure to exposure. This is what professionals do. You think if somebody joined, that means they're going to go all the way to the top, they're going to be a pro? No. You'd have to continue to educate them. They still don't understand. They still need to see the big picture. They still need to go to extravaganza. They still need to get a product story. They still need to have some sort of success. They need to get their warm market supporting them. They've got to follow this duplication process. You understand? They've got to make some friends. We're going to talk all about that next week when we get a person started and create radical duplication. Exposure to exposure never ends. I'm going to give you a secret that one of my early Herbalife mentors taught me. You know what he said? He said, Eric, do you want to know the secret to network marketing? Do you want to know the secret to building a big business? I said, is there such a thing? He said, yeah. Get people in your business to stay around, stay close to the fire, stay actively engaged for 90 more days. I'm like, what? You're kidding me. That's the secret? Yeah. Yep. Just get them to stay 90 more days. It's like May, June, July. Get them to hang around for 90 more days. Get them to be engaged for 90 more days. Get them to use the products for 90 more days. Get them to show up on the Zooms and come to the events for 90 more days. Get them to stay close to their friends for 90 more days. I said, well, what do you do after 90 days? And he looked at me like I was the stupidest person in the world. He said, Eric, days. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I get him to stay 90 days, however, and then I just need to get him to stay another 90 days because at some point, if you keep doing this, the penny's going to drop. This is like American slang. I don't know if that's going to work. But the idea is just going to finally, they're going to get it. They're going to understand. At some point, 90 day by 90 day by 90, at some point, boom, they get it. They say, you know what? I'm going to the top. Yeah, I don't need any more push. I've got this. I'm going to just go. Okay? So I adopted that philosophy and it changed everything for me. And let me ask you the question. How many months did it take before you really made a decision? You joined Herbalife, but before you really made a decision that you were absolutely going to go to the top. Put it in the chat. How many months? Be honest. Before you really, really pivoted, made a decision. It's all over the place. See, but it's not like one day. There's people 1 year, there's people 5 years, there's people 3 years, there's people 36 months, whatever. So just understand our job, keep them close to the fire a little while longer, okay? Let me give you another concept in follow-up. This one helped me a lot. Take a look at this clock dial. See this clock dial? This is like a normal clock, yeah? And I've got it in 4 quadrants, 12 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to noon. I learned about this from one of my mentors, and it really helped me with follow-up, and maybe it can help you. Here's what I learned. In this gold time between 9 and 12, that's when people are ready to join. They're ready to join. But let me tell you about the other 3 quadrants. Noon to 3, write this into your notes. From 12 to 3, something has changed in their life that's not good, or in their business, or in their career, or their job, and nobody knows. They're the only one that knows. Their spouse doesn't know, their family doesn't know. Something's changed, but they're hoping that it's going to get better. They're hoping that it's going to get back to something good. But something's changed. They're a little nervous, but nobody knows about it. Then you go from 3 to 6. Now some people know. It's not you know and somebody else knows. But you're still fighting the fight, and you're still trying to fix it. You're still trying to make it happen. You're totally focused. You've got a business you're trying to fix or whatever. From 6 to 9, everybody knows. It's a disaster. Everybody knows there's a big problem. Everybody knows this is a real issue. And you have to do something now. Otherwise, you're going to put your family at risk. And then from 9 to noon, they're open to opportunity. They're praying, God, please send me something like Herbalife that can help me get out of the situation that I'm in. I'm miserable where I am. I'm not happy in my situation. They're ready. But here's the secret. You never know when you're talking to somebody because they're not going to tell you where they're at. When you're going through an exposure, they're not going to tell you that something's changed but nobody knows. They're not going to tell you that some people know that they're in the green. They're not going to tell you that some people, everybody knows they're in the yellow. But they will tell you if they're in the gold. That's why follow-up's so important. If you keep coming back around, eventually you're going to find somebody who is open and ready. Their mind is open. Their heart is open. They're ready to hear what you have to say. In the other times, their mind might be a little bit more closed. Okay? Is this helpful for you? It helped me an awful lot. Because if I'm talking to somebody in 12 to 3 and something's changed and nobody knows, and I'm trying to tell them about what I have, they're trying to fix this little problem that they have. They're not ready for a big change. As soon as I saw this, I'm like, oh, this explains so much. I just need to talk to enough people and have enough follow-up that eventually I'm always going to be finding people that are open to opportunity in this gold zone. I'm always going to be finding somebody that is close to high noon and ready to go. Oh, okay. And I'm going to have compassion for everybody else. And I'm going to patiently wait for them to get open to the opportunity. And I'm going to do that by continuing the conversation, following up like a professional. You see what I'm saying? Exposure to exposure to exposure. You're going to find that gold zone as you go through. So, follow-up is just doing what you said you were going to do, being a pro. You set the next exposure, you set the time, you set the place, you do it. You set the next one, you set the time, you set the place, you do it. You set the time, you set the place, you do it. And you just stay in conversation. Now let's talk about what used to scare me to death, which is questions and objections. How do you handle questions and objections? You've got somebody, maybe you've been through an exposure or another exposure, and if you're doing this right, you're going to get questions. You're going to get objections. That's natural. If you walk into a retail store and you talk to somebody about something that you want to buy, or you want to buy a car or something, you're going to ask them questions, right? That doesn't mean that you're being a jerk. You're going to have objections about that car. That doesn't mean that you're wanting to hurt somebody's feelings. You're trying to get more clarity about what it is that you're looking to become a part of. First things to understand is questions are your friend. For your prospect, they help to clarify the opportunity. Okay? Questions are your friend. Remember this. Take a picture of this. Questions are your friend. If they ask you a question, even if it sounds negative, questions are your friend. No matter what the question is, it's your friend. I promise you. If you learn how to be a pro. And here's simply all you're going to do. Anytime somebody asks you a question, just use a third party. Thank you for asking. The answer's on this Zoom. The answers, I can get the answer from my upline. Let me introduce them to you. The answer's on this video. The answer's on this website. The answer's in this brochure. The answer's in this news article. The answer's in this marketing piece. The answer's in the story. The answer's in this conference call. The answer's in this webinar. You don't have to be an expert at anything. Matter of fact, it's better if you're not an expert. Again, if they ask a question, point, read, introduce, tell a story. Point to some third party and say, let's go get the question answered. That's a good question. Let's go figure it out together. You can read the answer to the question on the website or in the brochure or wherever. You can tell stories. You can introduce somebody to your upline, crossline, or to a friend. Let the third party answer the question for you. This helped me so much because I felt like I didn't have to become an expert. This was amazing for me. Second thing you need to understand is objections are your friend. They seem negative, but they're actually positive. Objections are a positive thing. Isn't that something to hear? Objections are a positive thing. And I'm going to tell you my 3 stages of what I did. Don't do what I did. I'm going to help you try and get to a professional status when it comes to objections today, okay? At least give you the framework for it today. Because my first stage when I joined network marketing is if somebody gave me an objection, I would agree with them and run away. They say, I don't have the money. I say, well, if you don't have the money, you can't build a business. Bye. And I'd leave. If they said, I don't have the time. Well, if you don't have the time, you can't build a business. Bye. And I'd leave. Or if they'd say, well, I'm not a good salesperson. Well, if you can't sell, you're not going to talk to people. You're not going to build a business. Bye. And I'd leave. That was my first stage. And you can guess, my ability to follow up after agreeing with them and running away was not good. I did not set up the next exposure. And if I didn't set up the next exposure, they stayed uneducated. I failed at my job of educating them to the point that they understand what I had. They gave me an objection. I viewed it as rejection. I agreed with them and I ran away. How many of you are doing that right now? Put a 1 in the chat. If you're agreeing with them when they give you an objection, you're just agreeing with them and running away. Some will, some won't. Next. Right? It's very common. It's what I did. It will not work very well. You're planting a seed that other people are going to harvest later. Those people are probably going to join Herbalife, just not with you, because you're going to be out of the picture. Don't make the mistake that I made. Second phase, my second stage in handling objections, once I learned a little bit about network marketing, was to argue with people. I learned to argue. Some people would give me, they'd tell me, I don't have the time. I'm like, oh, really? You don't have the time? Show me how much screen time you have on your phone. Show me how much daily average screen time you have on your phone. Because, clearly you have time. Or somebody say, oh, this sounds like a pyramid. I would say, oh, you mean like every corporate structure in the history of the world, every organizational structure, every government structure, every sports team structure, every structure ever? Is that what you mean by a pyramid? I would argue. I had all the fancy answers. How many of you have gotten stuck in phase 2, arguing with them? Put a 2 in the chat if you're arguing with people. Like, you're so stupid. You don't have the money. You're broke, then you have to join. You're so dumb. You're so stupid. That's what you're implying when you're arguing with people. And we don't even need to ask, how do you think it worked out for me? And how do you think it worked out for everybody who's putting a number 2 in the chat, arguing with people? It doesn't work out very well. It's very difficult to keep the conversation going. Because if you're arguing, there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. You can win the argument and stop the conversation. And if you stop the conversation, you stop the ability for them to be able to understand what you have. It's not useful. And 3, finally, I learned how to use the objection as an opportunity. I had learned to use it as a tool to help people understand what I had. It became my best friend. So let's talk about objections for a second, okay? Put an objection into the chat. What's an objection? Put an objection that you have. And I know we have lots of languages, but I'll be able to read the English. They don't have the money. They don't have the time. It's a pyramid. It's expensive. Not interested. I can't sell. It's a cult. No money. Let me think about it. No time. My body can't take the products. I'm not a seller. I don't like sales. It's a pyramid scheme. I can't talk to people. I don't know anybody. I'm not able to. No time. Not a salesperson. Let me save you some time. Throw up this whole list. Here's some common objections. Tell me if you think I've got generally the conversations. This is a pyramid scheme. Herbalife or network marketing has a bad reputation. I have a bad experience with network marketing. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. Only the people at the top make money. I already have a good job. How much money are you making? I need to try the products first. I'm not cut out for this. I'm not a salesperson. I don't want to bug people. I don't know anyone. I don't like people. I don't think it'll work for me. I don't like rejection. I don't know anything about network marketing. It sounds too good to be true. I need to think about it. I need to check with my spouse. I need to pray about it. How do I know this company will last? Am I pretty close? Put a 1 in the chat if I'm pretty close. Pretty close. You're going to get these over and over and over and over and over and over 1,000 times. And objections used to terrify me. You know, like a scary dream? You'd have, your heart would just clench. I'd get to the end of an exposure and I'd say, well, what did you like best? And they would say, I don't like network marketing. My heart would just go, ugh. And I'm like, oh, and then like, do I run away? Do I argue with them? What do I do with this? And I finally realized after like 3 years being involved full time, these are not going to change. These objections are not going to change. So if I can figure out how to answer these and use these as a tool to be able to help educate people, then I can relax and I cannot be so stressed out. Okay? So let me break this all down for you. There's generally 2 types of objections. You just saw this big list. 2 types of objections. One, they have a limiting belief about themselves. They're too old, they're too young, they can't sell, they're whatever. They live in a small town, they live in a big city. They have a limiting belief about themselves or their circumstance. Right? Or two, they have limiting beliefs about network marketing or Herbalife. That's basically it. So when you're listening to them, it's one of those two things. They have a limiting belief about themselves or their circumstance, or they have a limiting belief about network marketing. You don't have to worry about all the different outfits that those two objections throw on, but that's basically it. Would you agree? That's basically it. You've been around for a minute? That's basically it. So what I'm going to give you now is a 4-step formula that I used and have used, and I've trained millions of people around the world how to respond professionally to any objection and use it to your advantage. Okay? 4-step formula. So I'd like you to write these 4 down. It's going to take a little bit of practice to be able to get great at this. But once you become great at this, you're going to look forward to objections. You're going to be excited when an objection shows up because it's an opportunity for you to build rapport with another human being. It's so good. It's so good. Number 1 is I want you to listen to the objection with respect. Listen to the objection with respect. Make sure you really understand. When they say they don't have the money, what are they really saying? Are they saying that you haven't shown enough to justify the money? Or that they really have no money? Or are they saying that they do have the money, but they've tried something like this before and it didn't work out and they don't want to lose the money? What is the real objection? You might have to ask some questions about this. Listen with respect and ask some questions so you truly understand the objection. Respectfully, not disrespectfully, respectfully, listen with respect. How many of you can do that? Put a 1 in the chat. Can you listen when they give you an objection instead of trying to answer it right away? Maybe ask a few questions. Listen with respect until you fully understand what they are really saying. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2 is to relate to them. This is so important. Relate to them. Let them know that they're not crazy. And most of you have the ability, I had the ability to relate to just about every objection because I had them too when I first took a look at network marketing. I had the same limiting beliefs. So if somebody tells me, listen, I would love to do this, but I don't have the money. I would listen, I would understand, and then I would say, you know what? When I first took a look at this, I didn't think I had the money either. I really struggled. Was I willing to take the little money that I had and put it into a business? Because I don't know about you, but I've tried a few things in my life, and I just didn't feel, I didn't want to fail in front of my family, and I don't know how much money you're making. I don't think it even matters. At the end of the month, you only have so much. And was I willing to put that at risk? So relate to them. Relate to that struggle. When they say they don't have the time, I didn't think I had the time either. My life was completely out of control. I had no time for myself, my family, all these other things. Or if they say, I'm not a salesperson. Me either. I'm actually an introvert. I hate selling products. That was not my thing, selling products at all. But you know what I found out about myself, which is next step we'll get to in a second. I love selling ideas, and I love building networks, and I love connecting with amazing people. So I listen, number one. I relate to them, number two. Now, sometimes you can relate to them because you actually relate. I'm not a salesperson. Me either. I don't like network marketing. I didn't either. I hated network marketing. I said never, never, ever, 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 ever. You and me, we're the same. Get it? Listen with respect and relate. Now, sometimes you can't relate to them. If they say, you know what? I don't think I can do this because I'm a brain surgeon. You can't say, oh my gosh, me too, if you're not a brain surgeon. You can't relate to them necessarily if you're not a brain surgeon, right? But you can relate to them through other people. Are there brain surgeons involved in Herbalife? Yes. You could say, hey, listen, I can't relate because you're way smarter than I am. But I know a brain surgeon that's actually involved in Herbalife, and they thought the same thing you're thinking right now. They didn't think it was going to work for them. Or if you talk to a woman who's pregnant, and they say, I don't know if I can do this right now because I'm pregnant. You can't say, oh my gosh, me too, as a guy, because you're not pregnant. But you can relate to them through somebody else, some other woman who's pregnant and had in their minds this as an objection and overcame it. So you can tell you can relate to them through your personal experience or through other people's experiences. Let them know that they're not crazy. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If you listen with respect and you relate to them, you're now on the same page. And they're going, you know what? This person's not just trying to be so pushy with me. They're trying to help me. You're going to build rapport with this person by following these first two steps. Then the third step you're going to do is you're going to tell stories. Your stories and other people's stories. Your stories and other people's stories. And then you're going to end with if I would you. And I'll put this together for you. I'll give you some examples. And if we're together, next time we're together in Extravaganza, we'll actually practice this together as a group. One person will be the prospect, the other person will be the distributor. We'll finish the exposure. One person will give up, will offer up an objection, and then the other person will use this 4-step process, okay? But for right now, let me just role play with you. Somebody says, I don't have the money. All right. Yeah, I can't wait for Bangkok either. It's going to be great. They don't have the money. I'm going to ask them questions. I'm going to listen with respect. I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to shame them. I'm just going to listen and understand the real issue. Then I'm going to relate to them. And I'm going to say, listen, I understand feeling like you don't have a lot of money. I understand having too much month at the end of the money. I get it. And when I first took a look at this business, when I first took a look at Herbalife, I thought that money was going to be the thing that was going to stop me because I just didn't feel like I had enough. But you know what I realized? I realized at this part of my life, if I didn't have enough to start this business, which is very low, then I might never be able to start a business. Because traditional business is much more expensive. And I also realized for myself that if I didn't change something, the plan that I was currently using was not going to help me. I was not going to be able to get where I wanted to go in my life. So I just decided for things to change, I had to change. And you know what I did? I just got creative. I found the money. I just decided not to let this barrier be the thing that stopped me from improving my life. Okay? I'll get to the fourth one in a moment, but let me do, I don't have the time. So a person says, I don't have the time. Listen with respect. Try to understand. Throw the 4 things up again. Listen with respect. relate to them. When I first took a look at this, I didn't think I had the time either. Who has time in this busy world? But you know what I realized? If I didn't do something, I was never going to have the time. I was never going to have freedom. I was never going to have choices. I was always going to be compromising with my family. I had to do something different. I just realized for me, now I'm not pointing at them. Do you understand? I'm letting them see my pain. I'm not pointing at them and telling them what they need to do. I'm talking about myself and what I needed to do. I realized that if I didn't figure out how to make some time as an investment in my future, to find as an investment in my future, if I didn't learn to plant some seeds today with a company, a global giant that can grow around the world, if I didn't learn some new skills and make some changes to be able to build an empire around these products, if I didn't do something, 5 years is going to go by just like that. And I'm going to be in the same spot, still with no time. And I realized that's not a good solution. Let me give you another one. Let's say somebody says, hold it. I hate network marketing. I hate it. I can't stand it. I'm going to ask some questions. Why? Why do you hate it? Do you have a story? Tell me. What's the story? You know, did you join somebody in your family? Have you just heard something in the news? You know, why was this an issue for you? Please tell me. And let them tell you, oh, no, I don't want to. No, come on. Forget about Herbalife for a second. I just want to know, what's your story? Why? Why do you hate it so much? You have to have a strong reason. And eventually they will tell you if you encourage them to do so. And then relate to them. Guess what? I didn't like it either. I'd heard all the stories too. I didn't think I was ever going to join network marketing. I didn't even think I was ever going to think about network marketing. If that clock dial wasn't in the gold zone, I wouldn't have looked ever. But man, I found out I was so wrong. I found out the news articles and what people told me were so wrong. I found out most of these people tried network marketing for 15 minutes and they didn't even really do it as professionals. I found out that professionals are joining around the world and using this as a form of distribution in order to be able to do huge things. I found out that most of what I believed about network marketing wasn't true. But I understand your concern because I had the same concern. We're the same, you and me. We're like, come on, this can't be real, right? But let me tell you what I learned. Part 3, let me tell you what I learned. This is the most regulated, the most widely kind of watched and respected form of distribution that's working around the world today. The profession by itself is doing over $200 billion a year in annual revenue. There's over 100 million people involved. Products that matter. Look at the associations connected to this company. Look at all the credibility connected to this company. Look at 44 years of history connected to this company. Look at, yes, there's been battles, but they've won those battles connected to this company. I realized if I didn't join today, I was going to regret it for the rest of my life because I think what they've done for the last 44 years was just dress rehearsals, just practice for what they're about to do. So the facts helped me change my mind. Now you can use this with everything, everything. Every objection that we listed for you. Listen with respect, relate to them, tell stories, and then, if I would you. The magic phrase, if I would you. So if somebody says they don't have the money, listen with respect so you understand, relate to them. I didn't think I had the money either. I realized for things to change, I had to change or I was never going to have any money. To be at this stage of my life and not to be able to have enough money to start an Herbalife business was embarrassing to admit. So let me ask you a question. If I could show you how to figure out how to find the money, how to justify the money, how to arrange for the money, how to change a few decisions that you're making. Don't spend there and spend here instead. If I could show you how to do this that wouldn't mess up your life, it wouldn't put your family at risk, would you be willing to at least take the next step with me? And what is that next step? The next exposure. Whatever that next exposure is. If they say they don't have the time, I'm going to listen, I'm going to relate. I understand I don't have the time either. I'm going to tell stories about it. I realize if I don't change something, I'm never going to have the time. If I could show you how I did and how other people did, how they creatively found the time in a busy life, I realized you can build a business in Herbalife 15 minutes at a time. That shocked me. I couldn't believe it, that you can actually build a business 15 minutes at a time. You didn't have to give people, I didn't have to commit 40 hours a week. I could stay with my job and take care of my family, and then 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there, I could build a business. So if I could show you how I found the time, and I'm busy too, if I could show you how I found the time, would you be willing to take the next step with me? Or if they say, I hate network marketing, listen with respect, relate. I understand I hated it too. Tell your stories or other people's stories. And then if I could show you how credible this company is, how powerful they are, the associations that they have, the relationships that they have, and the sponsorships that they have, and the organizations they're connected to, and the countries that they're involved in, and the credibility that they have around the world, and how they're set up to be able to just absolutely dominate in the decades to come. If I could show you all that, and you became comfortable that this company was for real, and network marketing as a vehicle for this company was for real, if I could show you that, would you at least be willing to take the next step? And what's the next step? The next exposure. What's the only reason for an exposure? To get to the next exposure. That's the only reason. You're going to go through this 4-step process. You're going to need to practice. And when we're together at Extravaganza, whether it's Manchester, or it's Colombia, or it's Thailand, or it's Minneapolis, or wherever it is in the world, we're going to do this in person. Okay? So that's a 4-step process to any question or objection. And if you practice this, I promise you, this works in every country around the world. It works in every culture around the world. If you'll practice this, if you'll become better at this, you will get better results. And those objections will turn into your best friend. So here's what we covered so far. And then I'm going to teach you how to close, okay? And this, what I'm about to teach you on how to get a person to take action is going to blow your mind. Because I've trained it to millions of people around the world, and the ones that put it into practice just absolutely outperform the ones that don't. It's so simple and so powerful. Be ready for that. But here's what we've covered so far. Conversation, all business conversation. Transition that conversation. Tell your story. Make an invitation to some sort of exposure using third party. Then you're going to follow up, keep the conversation going. Then you're going to answer every question using third party. And you're going to overcome every objection. You're going to use every objection as a powerful tool to help them understand what you're involved with and how they might fit into it. That's what we've covered so far. Okay? Now, we're all to this point. We're going to get to closing. How do you help a prospect make a decision? All right, you ready for this? If you're ready and you're getting value from this, put a 7 in the chat. If you're ready and you're getting value. Is this going to help you make some money? Is it going to help you grow a team? I hope it is. If it's not, you're not paying attention. So this is some of the best stuff I've got. How to help a prospect make a decision. Here's the first thing that you need to understand. What do you say at the end of every exposure? You show them a video. What do you say when it's over? You invite them to a Zoom. What do you say when it's over? You have them attend an event. What do you say when it's over? You have them use the product. What do you say when it's over? You put them on a 3-way phone call or 3-way chat. What do you say when it's over? Guess what most people say? So, what'd you think? Which is actually one of the worst things to say. It's really bad. Please don't do that. Let me give you a better way to go. And I'm going to actually give you 6 questions. And I want you to take pictures of this slide when it's done, because I want you to practice. This is the best question to ask every time the moment the exposure is done. The moment it's done. Question number 1. What did you like best? What did you like best about that Zoom? What did you like best about that event? What did you like best about that product? What did you like best about our phone call? What did you like best about our conversation at the coffee shop? What do you like best? What did you like best? This forces them to go in their mind and find something good. And it puts it on a positive direction. Now, even if they say, I hated everything, this 6-question close will still work. A lot of times. Really, and no kidding. You might think, oh, if you hated everything, I'm done. All right, see ya, bye. Just go through the 6 questions. All right, what did you like best? Question number 1. Now, question number 2 is just to determine their level of interest on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being you have no interest, and 10, you're ready to get started right this second. Where are you right now? Just give me an idea. Out of curiosity. I'm not saying you need to join or anything, but where are you right now on a scale of 1 to 10? If you get you're going to get a lot of 5s and 6s because people don't want to seem like they're too easy. But if somebody says a 7, they're joining for sure. If somebody says a 4, that means they got some questions that need to be answered. Somebody says a 2, they're skeptical. They have different questions that need to be answered. But you're going to get a lot of 5s and 6s. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? Is it possible for you to ask these 2 questions at the end of every exposure? I think it is. You can learn this. Yeah, even you slow learners like me, even you introverted people like me, you can ask these questions. As introverts, we're really good at asking questions. We're not so good at offering up, small talk. These 6 questions every time. What did you like best? I want you to think of 100 people on your team. 1 just doing whatever they're doing now. The 1 group of 100 over here doing what they're doing right now. And another group of 100 doing these 6 questions. And then take that times 1 year and tell me who's going to end up with better results. Just think about this as we go through. What did you like best? On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? 3rd question. This is a big one. Hypothetically, between you and me, out of curiosity, I love using these words. We'll talk about that in a second. How much would you need to earn per month with Herbalife if you started on a part-time basis in order to make this worth your time? How much would you need to earn per month part-time in order to make this worth your time? Role play with me. Really? Now come on, you're throwing in millions. Stop. That's not the true answer. How much would you need to earn? Real life for this to be worth your time? Guess what you're going to get a lot of? 300, 500, 700. Again, it's part-time. Somebody tells me, oh, I need 10,000. Like, really? That's like $50, $60 an hour. That's what you're getting paid right now? So I'm going to push back a little bit if somebody gives me a humongous number. Unless they're very successful. If they're very successful, okay, fine. Here's what's powerful about this. Every person in the world has a number that would be worth their time. Everyone. If you ask if you want to start a business, they say, I already have a business. I don't want another one. But if you started with this part-time, approximately how much would you need to earn per part-time in order to make this worth your time? Those last three words, critically important. Worth your time. Question number 3. Question number 4. They give you a number. Let's say it's $600. Okay? $600. Fantastic. Realistically, how many hours a week could you commit to building that type of income? How many hours a week could you commit to building that $600 monthly income? Realistically, how many hours? How many hours? Part-time, how many hours? Throw in the chat, how many hours to make 600 part-time? 4 hours, 2 hours, 4 hours a day, 10 hours, 7 hours. You're gonna need a lot of 5s and 10s for $600. Okay? What's important is you just ask the question, you be quiet, let them answer. Question number 5. How many months would you be willing to work those hours while you were working to develop that type of income? How many months? So 1, how much would you need to earn part-time in order for this to be worth your time? 2, how many hours a week could you realistically commit to developing that type of income? 3, how many months would you be willing to work those hours, because it's not going to happen immediately, while you were developing that income? You're going to get a lot of 6 months, 12 months, 5 months. Yeah? And then question number 6 is the magic question again. If I, would you? Listen, if I could show you in our compensation plan what you would need to do in our compensation plan in order to earn $600, this is not a claim that they're going to. If I could show you what you would need to do in the Herbalife compensation plan in order to earn $600 a month, working approximately 10 hours a week over the course of 6 months, if I could show you what you would need to do, would you be willing to take the next step and learn more about it? And I'm going to just guide them to the next exposure. If I could show you what you would need to do in the compensation plan, no guarantees, no promises, but if I could show you what you would need to do, would you be willing to learn more about it? Because I can show, and could you pull out the compensation plan and show a person what they would need to do in order to earn $600? Can you do that? Put a 3 in the chat if you could do that. Without making any guarantees, any promises, any implied anything. Just show what you would have to do. Here's how the compensation plan works. Here's what you would have to do. Now again, these 6 questions should not imply any sort of guarantee. It's just a way for you to show your prospect what they would have to do in the compensation plan in order for that income to be real. And anytime you're discussing the financial opportunity, always show them the statement of typical earnings. There's no need to over-exaggerate and over-promise. The truth is good enough. And I'm just going to tell you this. Some of you are afraid to show the statement of typical earnings. Some of you are afraid to show the disclaimers. Don't be afraid to show the disclaimers. Show them. Just show them. It's fine. The world doesn't mind disclaimers. You actually gain more credibility when you show disclaimers than if you don't. Show the disclaimer. The truth is good enough. And then go back to the 6 questions again. What'd you like best? Take a picture of this. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? How much you need to earn on a part-time basis in order to make this worth your time? How many hours a week realistically could you commit to developing that type of income? How many months would you be willing to work those hours while you're developing that income? If I could show you in the compensation plan, would you be willing to take a look? You get it? Now listen to this. Let's say somebody finishes the exposure and they hate it. And they're a minus 20. On a scale of 1 to 10, they're a minus 20. I can still use these 6 questions and take them to the next exposure. Let me show you how. It's like a magic trick. It's unbelievable. I'll show you how. So I say to somebody, what do you like best? I hated every part of the video you just showed me. I wanted to throw up during the entire time. It was the worst thing I ever saw. Wow, interesting. So I think I know the answer, but on a scale of 1 to 10, 1, you have no interest, 10, you're ready to get started right now. Just give me an idea, just for fun. Where are you? I'm not even on that scale. I'm a minus 20. You lost me, man. This is the worst. I just lost 20 minutes of my life. Okay? You ever had any of these? I love these. These are my favorite. Then I'm still going to go to question number 3. You're like, what? Yep, I'm going to question number 3. All right, listen. This is actually fun for me. I've never had somebody that hated it as much as you do, so this is super interesting. And you're a minus 20. That's never happened. So, but I still have to ask this question. I know you're not going to do it. I know you're not interested. But if you did, for whatever crazy reason, decide that you were going to join this business part-time, how much would you need to earn per month in order to make this worth your time? There is no number. Oh, come on. Of course there's a number. Real life now. Come on. Just play with me. It's just hypothetically. It's just between you and me. How much would you need to earn to make this worth your time? Anna says 3,000. Luis says 400. Milo says 10,000. Ah, fantastic. And again, I know you're not going to do it, but realistically, if you're going to make that 3,000 in this Herbalife business, how many hours a week could you commit to building that type of income, that 3,000? How many hours? And I know you hate it. I know you're not going to do it, but how many hours could you give? 5 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours? And hypothetically, how many months would you be willing to work those hours while you were developing that $3,000 monthly income? They say 6 months. So then what do I say? Listen, I know, and I just find this super interesting, that you hated everything. You're a minus 20, but 3,000 would be worth your time. You'd be willing to give 10 hours a week, and you'd be willing to do it for 6 months. If I could show you in our compensation plan how that might be possible, and if I could help you with any of the objections that you have in your head that's causing you to have such a negative reaction, if I could show you those two things, would you at least be willing to take the next step with me and learn more about it? I'm telling you, that super negative person, they're actually fun when you have this process. You have these 6 questions? Yeah, I'll take a look. Yeah, all right, fine. All right, you got me. But you're going to have to overcome all these objections. Fine, I love objections. I got a 4-step process for that. I got a lot of questions. Fine, I got third party that'll take care of all these questions. You know, I'm not sure. Listen, I love a skeptic. Show me somebody who's skeptical, because once they're convinced, superstars. I'd rather have a skeptical person than somebody who's all, promises that they're going to go to the top and they never do anything. I love somebody who's going to be tough. Be tough. I can handle it. So when we're together, we're going to do this over and over and over together in person when we're at Extravaganza. We're going to do this. If I could show you in our compensation plan, if I could help you answer all of your objections, if I could help you get comfortable, would you be willing to take the next step and then schedule the next exposure? Okay? So I hope you've taken a screenshot of this so far. Let me give you some magic words and phrases, and we're about wrapped up. In this 6-question close, I love words like hypothetically, I'm not holding you to anything, this is just between you and me, this will help me get an idea of what you might be thinking. See what I mean? These types of words help a person to just open up and share. When they say it's a pyramid scheme, same thing. Say it's a pyramid scheme. I'm not interested. Go back to the 6 questions. If they say it's a pyramid scheme. First, I'm going to overcome the objections with the 4 things. What do you like best? I don't like anything. It's a pyramid scheme. A scale of 1 to 10, where are you? I'm a -5. It's a pyramid scheme. Well, I understand you think it's a pyramid scheme, but how much would you need to earn per month on a part-time basis if you eventually found out it was not a pyramid scheme? Let's just assume that for a second. I'm not saying that you're going to get there. How much would you need to earn per month on a part-time basis in order to make this worth your time? How many hours a week? How many months? If I could show you 2 things, how this worked in our compensation plan and that it was in fact not a pyramid scheme, if I could prove those 2 things to you, would you be willing to take the next step? People say the product's too expensive. Same thing. Go through the objections. Same thing. Expensive compared to what? Compared to what? Go through those four questions and you're good. So here's what's left. This good stuff? Wait till you see next week what I can teach you on duplication. It's going to blow your mind. It's going to absolutely blow your mind. I hope you qualify to become a part of it because it's going to be amazing. But week 1 was conversation challenge. Week 2 was an exposure challenge. Week 3 is a Premier League enrollment challenge. We go from conversation to transition to story to invitation to exposure with the third party to follow up, questions, objections, and enrollment. And if you follow this process over and over, it's going to take some practice, but this is not like learning to be a doctor. What I've covered with you in 4.5 hours total should help you accomplish your goal of 10 distributors and 2 supervisors. And again, sometimes this is market specific. See your upline or market host or Herbalife.com for complete details on all of this. Don't get stuck in the weeds. 10 and 2 is what you're looking for generally. Make sure it works in your market. I have a few questions for you. Are you committed? Are you right now, are you committed to become an Herbalife Premier League member? Put a 1 in the chat if you are. For real, even if you haven't posted anything in the chat yet, I want to know for real. Are you committed to making it happen? It might not happen today, it might not happen tomorrow, but it's going to happen. It is non-negotiable. We're going to make it, we're going to figure it out. In your mind, right? We're going to figure out a way to get there. We're going to do what's necessary. We're going to face our fears. We're going to learn the skills. We're going to help people and get you qualified as an Herbalife Premier League member. Number 2, this is a very important question. When? When are you going to become a member? I need a date. You can just give me a month. What month are you going to qualify? Put into the chat. What month are you going to become a Premier League member and fully qualified? Put it into the chat. Proclaim it to the world. When are you going to become a member? As close to the exact date as you can find. Okay? This is important. And number 3, tell the world your commitment. Tell your upline, tell people on social, tell your downline, tell your family you're going to become a Premier League member and you're going to do it by such and such a date and have the world hold you accountable. Okay? I'm excited for all of you that are putting these commitments and dates into the chat, and I'm proud of all of you for being here for 3 straight weeks. Last thing I will tell you is, would you like to help all of your newly enrolled distributors learn how to get started right? Would you like that? Would you like to have radical duplication in your business? Well, that is next week, but you have to have at least 1 new personally sponsored distributor by April 18th to attend. So go to herbalife.com, myherbalife.com, complete details on that. But that is part 3. I'd give part 4, even if you didn't recruit somebody, but it doesn't make sense. You don't need to duplicate if you haven't recruited anybody. So go get somebody in your business. Use all of these tools. Get somebody into your business. And then next week, same time, we're going to deliver the best duplication training that you, with all humility, that you may have ever seen in your life. It'll work for you in every market around the world, with every culture around the world. It is amazing. I'm proud of you. I'm congratulating you in advance for qualifying for Premier League. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a great, productive, amazing week, and I'll see you next time.